I never imagined that something as simple as changing my Wi-Fi password would end up triggering a full-blown police investigation. But somehow, that's exactly what happened. Welcome to my life. The whole thing started when my internet suddenly began crawling at a painfully slow speed. I work from home, so a reliable connection isn't just convenient, it's absolutely essential. At first, I assumed it was my provider having issues, but after doing a little investigating, I discovered the real problem. Half the neighborhood was using my Wi-Fi. I'm not exaggerating either. When I checked the list of connected devices on my router, I saw names like Brenda's iPad, Kevin's gaming PC, and even something labeled Smith Family TV. Apparently, I had unknowingly become the neighborhood's free internet provider. Naturally, I was annoyed. But instead of making a big deal out of it, I decided to handle it quietly. I reset my router, created a brand new password that was ridiculously long and complicated, and figured that would solve the problem. I thought that would be the end of it. I couldn't have been more wrong. The very next morning, I was in the middle of an important work meeting when I suddenly heard loud, aggressive pounding on my front door. It wasn't a normal knock. It sounded like someone was trying to break the door down. I muted my microphone, walked to the door, and cautiously peeked through the peephole. And there she was, Karen. She's the self-appointed queen of our Homeowners Association. Her face was bright red with anger, her perfectly styled perm practically shaking as she stood there pointing an accusing finger at my door. I cracked the door open just slightly. Before I could even say hello, she exploded. "What did you do to the internet?" she shouted. "My grandkids can't watch their shows, and I have important emails to send. You can't just shut off the community Wi-Fi." Community Wi-Fi? I stared at her in disbelief. Trying to stay calm, I explained that it wasn't community Wi-Fi at all. It was my private internet connection that I paid for every month. And since it was mine, I had every right to change the password. Karen was not interested in hearing that. She puffed up her chest like she was about to deliver a speech and declared, "I'm the HOA president. Everything that happens in this neighborhood is my business. You are selfishly hoarding the internet, and I will not allow it." I tried reasoning with her. I even showed her my internet bill with my name and address on it. But talking to Karen was like trying to reason with a brick wall. She insisted that because my Wi-Fi signal reached her house, she had every right to use it. The conversation kept going in circles for nearly 10 minutes before she suddenly pulled out her phone. "That's it," she snapped. "I'm calling the police. You're disturbing the peace and stealing community resources." I honestly thought she was bluffing. Who on earth calls 911 over a Wi-Fi password? Karen, apparently. She actually dialed the number and began reporting what she called a utility theft and public disturbance. I just stood there in disbelief while she calmly gave the dispatcher my address. When she hung up, she looked at me with a smug smile. "They're on their way," she said. "We'll see who's right." About 15 minutes later, 2 police cars pulled up in front of my house with their lights flashing. By this point, several of my neighbors had started peeking out their windows, and I could feel my face burning with embarrassment. 2 officers got out of cars, a man and a woman, and walked up my driveway. Karen was already standing there waiting for them, like an actress preparing for her big scene. "Officers, thank goodness you're here," she cried dramatically. "This man," she pointed directly at me, "has maliciously cut off the neighborhood's internet. He's hoarding it for himself." The officers looked at me, then at her, both clearly confused. The male officer, Officer Miller, asked me calmly to explain what was going on. So I did. I told him that the Wi-Fi network was mine, that I paid for service myself, and that I had discovered several unauthorized devices connected to it. All I had done was change my password to secure my own network. I even offered to show him my internet bill again. His partner, Officer Davis, turned toward Karen. "Ma'am," she asked, "do you pay for this internet service?" Karen hesitated. "Well, no," she admitted, "but it's always been available. It's basically a community service." Officer Miller sighed. "Ma'am, that's not how it works," he said. "Using someone else's Wi-Fi without permission is actually illegal, and calling 911 over something like this is considered misuse of emergency services." He began explaining that emergency lines were meant for real emergencies. I figured that would finally be the end of it. Karen would get a warning, the officers would leave, and I'd go back to my workday. But that's when things took a very unexpected turn. While Officer Miller was talking to Karen, Officer Davis noticed something strange across the street. Karen had a large decorative fountain in her front yard, something she was very proud of and loved to show off to neighbors. But Officer Davis spotted something unusual. A thick black cable ran from the fountain's pump along the side of Karen's house, and then disappeared into a public utility box near the street. It didn't look normal. "Ma'am," Officer Davis said suddenly, pointing at the cable, "what exactly is this wire for?" Karen's face changed instantly. One second she was angry, and the next she looked like she'd seen a ghost. "Oh, that's nothing," she stammered. "Just some old wiring for my garden lights." But her voice was shaky, and she refused to make eye contact. The officers exchanged a glance and walked over to take a closer look. It didn't take long for them to figure it out. The cable was a makeshift electrical connection running directly into the city's power supply. Karen had been stealing electricity, most likely for years. Officer Miller looked back at her, his expression no longer confused or patient. Now it was serious. "Ma'am," he said firmly, "are you aware that you've been illegally tapping into the city's electrical grid?" Karen began stammering excuses. "My husband set that up years ago. I didn't know. I thought it was allowed." But her explanations fell apart almost immediately. The situation had suddenly gone from a petty argument about Wi-Fi to a potential felony. The irony of it all was almost unbelievable. Karen had called the police to accuse me of stealing internet service that she wasn't paying for, while she herself had been stealing thousands of dollars worth of electricity from the city. The officers informed her that the utility company would need to investigate and that she could face serious fines or even criminal charges. The smug confidence she had earlier completely vanished. Now she looked terrified. Suddenly she turned toward me, her voice desperate. "Please," she whispered, "please tell them this is a misunderstanding. I'll get my own internet, I promise. Just don't let them do this." She was actually begging me. The same person who had just tried to have me arrested over a Wi-Fi password. I just looked at her and shook my head. "Karen," I said calmly, "you're the one who called them. You wanted to find out who was right. Well, I guess we did." The officers took photos of the illegal wiring, recorded her information, and told her the power company's investigation team would be contacting her soon. As they left, Officer Miller gave me a small nod. "Sorry about the disturbance, sir," he said. "Have a good day." Then they drove away. Karen remained standing in her driveway next to her silent fountain, looking completely defeated. The next day, a crew from the power company arrived and spent hours disconnecting her illegal setup and installing a proper electrical meter, one she would now have to pay for. Her fountain hasn't run since. The story spread through the neighborhood quickly. Karen calling the police over my Wi-Fi only to get caught stealing electricity became instant local gossip. Her time as the neighborhood's HOA tyrant came to a very quick and very embarrassing end. She stepped down as president shortly afterward. Now, whenever we pass each other on the street, she can't even look me in the eye. And the best part? My internet has never been faster. Turns out when half the neighborhood stops using your Wi-Fi, the connection works perfectly. Sometimes when people try to create problems for others, they end up exposing a much bigger problem of their own. Thanks for listening to my story. If you got any crazy neighbor experiences of your own, drop them in the comments. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more.